It started with laughter. Not the joyful kind, not the human kind, but a cold, metallic ripple that buzzed across 1,000 alien tongues, across 1,000 solar systems, during the grand assembly of the Galactic Council. They laughed at the primitive species from the third planet of a minor star. They laughed at Earth. "Let them serve," said High Warden Zeltheric of the Varn Dominion, its 4 glowing eyes rolling in synchronized arrogance. "They have muscle, no mind." A murmur of agreement swept the council chambers. Hundreds of alien species, each more arrogant than the last. They all nodded, some clicking their mandibles, others rippling their tentacles in affirmation. Earth, the blue marble of savages, had finally been discovered, observed for decades, dismissed, and now approved for galactic servitude, unanimous vote. They didn't see what was coming. They underestimated one thing, what it meant to be human. Back then, Earth didn't even know they had been voted on. The humans were busy fighting among themselves, as usual. Political nonsense, greed, climate tipping points, wars in corners of the world that the rest pretended to ignore. But one day, it all changed. A rift tore open in the sky above New Delhi. It wasn't subtle. It screamed open with blue fire and a thunder that silenced the city. Moments later, dozens more ripped into the world, in Rio, Tokyo, Lagos, Moscow, New York. The sky looked like a broken mirror, and from each shard came ships, smooth, alien, gleaming like obsidian and bone. They didn't attack, not at first. They offered a message, broadcast in every language, somehow already translated. "You are now under the stewardship of the Galactic Dominion. Resistance is unproductive. Compliance will ensure survival." Then came the implants, the collars, the work camps. They took the strong first. Farmers, soldiers, builders, miners. The rest were tagged for later use. But humans aren't livestock. We're wolves dressed as sheep. It started small. A technician in Berlin figured out how to disable a neural tether using nothing but a microwave and an old Nokia phone. A farmer in Brazil killed his alien overseer using sharpened sugarcane. A former Navy SEAL in Detroit hijacked a dropship with 3 sticks of C4 and a rusted-out Jeep. The spark caught. Within a year, the resistance had a name: the Reckoning. And leading it wasn't a politician or a general or even a scientist. It was a man who used to mop floors in a government building, Jared Cole. They called him the Ghost, because every time the aliens thought they'd killed him, he came back twice as deadly. He united gangs, soldiers, hackers, even school teachers, anyone who had lost something to the New Order. The first major strike came in orbit. The aliens had built a floating prison above Earth's atmosphere, the Cradle. Thousands of humans packed into cells like animals. They said it was a re-education facility. Jared said it was a slaughterhouse. The Reckoning hijacked a cargo drone, slipped into orbit under the radar, and blew the entire Cradle apart with stolen antimatter. 8,000 humans freed. The Galactic Council didn't laugh that day. They panicked, because humans weren't dying. They were adapting, faster than any species they'd enslaved before. "We have a problem," hissed Warden Zeltheric across a private channel, its arrogance flickering into something rare. Fear. The Council began sending more forces, elite death squads, psi warriors, bio-beasts, but humans? We just got meaner. Every failed invasion turned Earth into a forge, sharpening humans into monsters of their own. And now, 5 years later, the tide had turned. Ships from the Varn Dominion hung in Earth's orbit, damaged, crippled, and broadcasting a desperate message. "We surrender. We request terms." Too late. Jared stood in the ruins of what used to be Geneva, staring at a live broadcast from the Council. His face was scarred, beard tangled, eyes like flint. Around him, humans cheered, armed with alien weapons and earthborn rage. "They all voted to enslave us," he said, voice low and bitter. "Now they beg." And he didn't smile. He just whispered, "Let them crawl." The Galactic Council's official message was clear: unconditional surrender. But Earth had learned something in those 5 years of blood and fire. Words were cheap, and aliens lied just like men. Jared Cole didn't rush. He made them wait. He stood atop the balcony of the old UN building, now just a skeleton of steel and ash, his long coat swaying in the nuclear wind that still whispered through the cracks of fallen cities. The banner of the Reckoning, black cloth with a cracked golden planet, hung behind him. Around him stood the leaders of Earth's new world, ex-criminals, rogue scientists, soldiers turned rebels, and a few of the very aliens who had switched sides when they realized humans couldn't be broken. One of them stepped forward, a former slave master, a reptilian called Sravkesh. Once he had ruled over hundreds of human prisoners. Now he wore chains of his own and spoke only when spoken to. "They will offer technology," Sravkesh rasped. "Medicine, energy. They'll give you everything they once hoarded. All they want is peace." Jared didn't blink. "And when they get strong again, what happens then?" Sravkesh said nothing. He already knew the answer. Everyone did. "You don't forgive people who voted to enslave your children." Earth's surface was still scarred. Cities rebuilt with alien scraps. Entire populations missing, some still trapped in off-world labor pits. But the heart of humanity, the thing that kept it from dying, was stronger than ever. Unbreakable. Back in orbit, the Council's flagship waited. The eminence of order, a silver spire the size of Manhattan, hovered under a white flag. Dozens of diplomatic vessels stood beside it, shields down. Vulnerable. Begging. Jared ordered the fleet to stand by. "Let's remind them what surrender looks like." He climbed aboard the Iron Whale, the first warship Earth had built with stolen alien tech. It wasn't pretty. Rough edges, exposed wiring, angry red thrusters. But it worked, and it hit harder than anything in the galaxy. By the time they arrived, the Council's representatives were already groveling, literally. Dozens of species lined up in the throne room of the Eminence, kneeling on trembling legs or coiled tails. No royal robes today, no glittering eyes of superiority, just fear. That sharp, bitter kind that humans knew all too well. A translator bot buzzed. "Esteemed humans of Earth." Jared cut it off with a raised hand. He didn't sit in the chair they'd prepared. He stood, arms crossed. "You knew we were intelligent," he began, voice calm but slicing. "You studied us, you watched us, and still you thought slavery was your right." Silence. A councilwoman from the Azure Winds, a bird-like species with sapphire feathers, stepped forward. "We underestimated the emotional volatility of your kind," she said, voice shaking. "We viewed you as useful, not equal." "Useful," Jared repeated coldly. "Is that what you called my sister before you worked her to death mining plasma rocks on Eris Prime?" The birdwoman bowed her head, and something inside Jared almost softened. But then he remembered the smell of burning cities, the sound of crying children dragged into alien ships, the taste of blood in underground bunkers. A diplomat from the Dral Collective raised a hand. "We have no military left. Earth controls half the orbital routes in Sector 9. You've won." Jared's eyes narrowed. "No," he said. "We haven't even started." He turned and looked at General Thompson, his second in command, an ex-Marine with a mechanical arm and nothing left to lose. "Tell the fleet to seize all Council ships still operating within Earth star systems, confiscate their cores, Strip their engines, and if they resist—" He didn't finish. Thompson smiled. "Yes, sir." The council chamber erupted in murmurs, some pleading, some furious. "You can't. We surrendered. We gave you peace." Jared raised his voice, louder than all of them. "You gave us a graveyard." And with that, he turned and walked away, his boots echoing across the floor that once belonged to slavers. Back on Earth, the people didn't want a treaty. They wanted justice. They wanted retribution. And Jared? He wanted something worse, not to destroy the council. He wanted to make them live under the same fear they once forced upon humans, to become what they made Earth, to make them remember. The days that followed were not filled with parades or peace talks. They were filled with orders. Earth's orbit became a scrapyard of surrendered vessels, stripped, gutted, and dragged back to lunar docks for dismantling. What couldn't be salvaged was repurposed into floating war monuments, reminders of how close humanity came to extinction and what it took to survive. The Galactic Council's members, once majestic sovereigns of entire star systems, now waited in iron cells, underground bunkers, or reinforced stasis tanks. They weren't tortured. No, Jared refused to let humans become monsters. But he made sure they felt powerless, the same way Earth once had, when alien collars burned into the backs of children's necks. Jared spent his nights in the command center beneath Mount Elgon, one of the few places the orbital strikes had never touched. The mountain had been turned into Earth's central hub, a city of underground tunnels, labs, war rooms, and prison blocks. He rarely slept. Victory didn't feel like it should. It didn't taste sweet. It was ash in his mouth. Every day he walked past scarred civilians, empty chairs at mess halls, names etched into the black wall of the fallen. Each name a person, each one a reason he couldn't stop. Then came the transmission. It wasn't from the council. It was from a fringe world in the outer fold. Humans, Jared realized, who'd been taken years ago and never found. The camera was shaky. The speaker was a boy, maybe 17, with sunburned skin and blood on his lip. "This is Colony Breaker 12, the kid said. "We are survivors of the Varn slave camps on Delta Core. We have taken the facility. We are free, and we are armed." Behind him were dozens of others, young and old, all holding alien weapons. A few wore pieces of dead overseers' armor like trophies. Others carried scraps of old Earth gear, patched with wires and courage. The boy looked into the lens. "Tell Earth we're ready to come home, or we'll burn our way there." The signal cut. Jared leaned back, hand gripping the edge of the cold metal table. He stared into the dark, then turned to Thompson and said, "Send ships. Bring them back. Every last one." "And if someone tries to stop us?" Thompson asked. "Then we take their planets too." Word spread fast. Earth was coming for its people. But what really shook the galaxy wasn't Earth's anger. It was their efficiency. Humans weren't like other species. They didn't hesitate. They didn't spend decades in debate or protocol. In less than a month, Earth's newly formed Orion legions swept through 3 neighboring systems, rescuing prisoners, wiping out resistance, and converting every enemy base into forward outposts. The galaxy had changed overnight. And the Council? It was crumbling. Some members begged to align with Earth, offering bribes, weapons, even entire moons. Others tried to flee, only to be intercepted by Earth's fleet or by the growing number of alien species who had sided with humans, either out of guilt or fear. But not all resistance was gone. From the dark edges of the galactic rim, whispers began to rise. Of something old, something angry, the Razun conglomerate. They hadn't voted on Earth's enslavement, not because they objected, but because they didn't care. The Razun believed in only one thing: dominance through fire and extinction. And now, seeing the Council on its knees and humans rising fast, they saw an opportunity. An opportunity to crush Earth before it became unstoppable. The first attack was surgical, a stealth missile through a wormhole, straight into Earth's outermost relay station near Pluto. Gone in a silent blue flash. Jared received the alert in seconds. "Razun," he said, grinding the word like broken glass between his teeth. "They want war?" Thompson asked. Jared's stare was steel. "Number they want a warning." He stood up. "Then let's give them a memory instead." The attack on the Pluto relay station was the first direct strike Earth had taken in nearly a year, and it left no survivors, no bodies, just ashes and silence. The Razun had sent a message, not with words, but with precision. Unlike the Council's arrogance, the Razun were something else entirely. Ancient, militant, fanatical. While the rest of the galaxy evolved, they had built fleets, war moons, and death cultures. Entire civilizations had vanished into their obsidian warships. Jared Cole had read about them. Once. Long ago. Footnotes in stolen alien archives. Warnings, really. Most civilizations that encountered the Razun didn't live long enough to warn anyone else. But now Earth had their attention. Good. Jared didn't hesitate. Within hours, Earth's fleet, nicknamed the Iron Choir, was mobilized. 37 vessels, human and hybrid built, each scarred from previous campaigns but more dangerous than ever. These ships weren't polished, they weren't elegant, they were brutal, with thick hulls, kinetic cannons, and railgun arrays that could tear moons apart. Their destination? Vorax 5, a refueling station recently acquired by Earth, and now the site of another Razun attack. Jared led the mission personally. He wanted them to see his face. As Iron Whale dropped out of warp, the scene unfolded like a nightmare. Flaming husks of human ships floated near the station's orbit, their distress signals still blinking like dying heartbeats. And in the distance, them. Sleek black ships shaped like twisted daggers, drifting in perfect silence. No signals, no language, just presence. Jared's voice cut through the command deck like ice. "Weapons online. No warnings. No negotiation." He stood behind the gunnery officer, eyes fixed on the screen. "We are not the Galactic Council. We don't beg for peace." The first barrage came from Earth. Railguns ripped the vacuum, hammering into the lead Razun vessel. It didn't dodge, didn't flinch. It just took the hit, and then responded. Light exploded across the darkness. The Razun weapons weren't like others. They weren't beams or blasts. They were rips in reality, dark energy tearing into matter, folding ships like paper. One of Earth's forward frigates blinked out of existence in a flash of black static. But Earth had learned. The other ships didn't break formation. They surged forward. General Thompson's voice came over comms. "All squadrons, engage Delta formation. Target weak points near the dorsal fins. These bastards bleed like the rest." And bleed they did. The Iron Choir closed in like a swarm of angry hounds, tearing into Razun ships with everything they had. Jared's ship fired volley after volley, breaking through shields with brute kinetic force. One of the enemy vessels tried to ram, but was intercepted mid-flight by a suicide drone, the explosion lighting up the stars with human fury. Inside the Iron Whale, alarms rang. Hull damage, power reroutes, casualties on Deck 3. Jared didn't blink. "Stay on them," he growled. "We don't stop until their last god dies screaming." The battle raged for over 6 hours. By the end, half of Earth's fleet was gone or crippled. But the Razun, annihilated. Their flagship was pulled into the gravity well of Vorax 5, smashing into the planet's surface with a roar that cracked the ground for miles. The others either fled or were reduced to floating scrap. The silence after was eerie, but it wasn't peace. Back on Earth, survivors were broadcast across every reclaimed screen in every rebuilt city. Jared stood before them, coated in soot and blood, looking into the camera with the weight of vengeance behind his eyes. "We bled," he said. "We lost people, good people." He paused, breath tight. But make no mistake, this was not a victory. The screen flickered to the wreckage. The names of the fallen scrolled in silence. "This is a message," he leaned in. "To every Razun warlord hiding in shadow, you came to kill us. You failed. Now we're coming for you." He cut the feed. And in the silence that followed, Earth didn't mourn. It prepared. Because Jared knew the truth now. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was the beginning of humanity's reign. There were no more votes now. No more councils. No more debates in the comfort of marble halls orbiting suns light years away. The galaxy was different. Earth had made it different. After Vorax's fief, fear spread faster than light. Entire species who once looked down on humans were now trying to erase their past crimes. Suddenly, archives disappeared. Old treaties were rewritten. War records mysteriously lost. Everyone wanted to pretend they'd never been part of the vote to enslave Earth. But Jared Cole remembered every single one of them. And he had names. Each name belonged to a planet. Each planet to a former council race. And one by one, those names were crossed out. It wasn't genocide. Jared refused to become what they were. But it was something worse. Total public humiliation. Take Varnox, the insectoid race that authored the first slave protocols for humans. Jared didn't bomb them. He didn't scorch their cities. He broadcast their surrender live to 1 billion human viewers. The Varnox Queen, once taller than a tank, crowned in golden chitin, was filmed kneeling in front of human officers, forced to sign a treaty that labeled her people a subject race. Every Varnox citizen was ordered to wear a human insignia armband until further notice. Their libraries were rewritten, their war monuments torn down. Earth didn't just defeat them, it made them kneel, and across the stars, humans watched it all, on holoscreens, in underground bunkers, inside half-rebuilt cities with patchy power and rationed food. And for the first time in centuries, they felt it. Power. The world was still broken. But now, it mattered. In the burned ruins of Seoul, kids with prosthetic limbs practiced mock battles, swinging sticks like rifles and yelling "Iron Choir" with fire in their eyes. In the caves of northern Canada, a new generation of scientists decoded alien relics, turning ancient energy sources into weapons Earth had never dreamed of. Earth wasn't just rebuilding, it was evolving. But Jared knew evolution came with a cost. He stood alone sometimes, in his old quarters beneath Mount Elgon, staring at the single photo he kept above his desk. His sister, Lily, laughing, her eyes soft, her hands smudged with paint. She'd died in the early camps, beaten to death for hiding a child from transport. He had never found the body. He didn't cry anymore. He couldn't. He just looked at her face and whispered, "They still owe you." That debt was what kept him going. Not power, not pride. Debt. One night, a diplomat arrived. Not an alien, a human, tall, clean, dressed in white. The kind of man who hadn't seen war but had watched it from safe screens with wine in hand. He spoke with a smile, too polished. "We should consider ending this campaign. The galaxy's changed. We've proven our point." Jared didn't respond. "We can become a beacon," the man went on. "A symbol of justice, of peace. We don't need to conquer." That word was a mistake. Jared looked up slowly. "We didn't conquer," he said, voice low. "We survived. We hunted those who put collars on our necks. We lit up the stars with their guilt. And now you want me to stop? Because it makes you uncomfortable?" The man hesitated. "You're building an empire," he said finally. "That's not survival anymore." Jared stood, walked past him, stopped at the door. "Survival ends when we're safe," he said. "And we're not safe yet. Not while the Razun still breathe. Not while other species still whisper about putting us back in chains the moment we blink." He opened the door. "Get off my planet." The diplomat left. Quickly, word spread. Jared Cole was not a ruler. He was a reckoning, and the galaxy would have to live with that. Back in orbit, Earth's engineers tested the first event hammer, a massive weapon built from a collapsed star core. It could crush moons. It had no official use, but it had a message etched across its hull in a dozen alien languages. Never again. They called it the Red Silence. The Razun home system, hidden in a pocket of space veiled by gravitational shadows and cloaked wormholes, wasn't just hard to find. It was meant to stay unfound. The Razun had made sure of that. Not because they feared attack, because they feared witnesses. What they did on their homeworld didn't need oversight or laws. It was where they bred their war priests, trained child executioners, and turned entire planets into slaughter temples. No diplomacy, no politics, just dominance, refined and worshipped. But now Jared had found it. It took Earth's most brutal minds to crack the star map that led there. Refugees, traitors, hunted alien archivists willing to sell out the Razun in exchange for safety on Earth. Jared promised them protection. And delivered. Now it was time for him to deliver something else. Vengeance. The Iron Choir's remains, now reforged into a new fleet named the Pale Engine, surged toward the Red Silence in perfect formation. These weren't exploratory ships. They weren't scouts or diplomats. They were cleavers, designed for planetary dismemberment. At the helm, Jared stood in the heart of the Throat Cutter, the flagship born from the bones of 3 alien dreadnoughts and fused with a neutron spike drive. It looked like a scar dragging itself through space. As they exited warp, silence fell. The Red Silence wasn't just a poetic name. It was real. No signals, no frequencies, no light from the Razun's black star, pulsing in slow agony. Just the oppressive, endless dark. Until suddenly, there it was. Zurkar, the Razun homeworld. A world so dark it bent light, rings of bone and iron, orbiting slave platforms. Giant planetary defense cannons fused with screaming faces etched into stone. It wasn't a planet. It was a wound on the galaxy. Jared took it all in without blinking. "Begin." The Pale Engine moved in. Razun ships rose from the void in silence, massive crescent-shaped destroyers bristling with Void Rift weaponry. There was no communication, no warning, just a war that had waited long enough. And Earth did not blink. The first engagement lasted 13 minutes. 4 Razun warships disintegrated, torn apart by tactical singularities Earth had developed using salvaged enemy cores. Earth lost 2 destroyers, but not crews. Those had been AI-driven ghosts designed to look manned. A trap, a brutal one. By hour 2, the Pale Engine had reached Zurkar's orbit. Jared gave the command. "Send it." The event hammer detached from its carrier, a floating titan, burning with inner starlight. Its trajectory was locked on Zurkar's military capital, Kalath Varn, a fortress city built inside a canyon of black glass. When the hammer dropped, it didn't just strike. It erased. The canyon melted. The fortress screamed. A mushroom of glowing red plasma erupted into the upper atmosphere. For the first time in recorded history, the Razun transmitted a signal. Not words. A single shriek. The pain of gods. Razun ships faltered. They didn't retreat, but they hesitated, and that was all Earth needed. Jared took the throat cutter through the breach, straight into the stratosphere. Missiles rained. EMP bursts crackled across the skies. Entire Ra-Zun cities began to collapse under the weight of Earth's fury. No mercy, no quarter. Every act mirrored what they'd done to humans decades ago. Only now, the humans were in control. Inside Kalath Varn's ruins, Jared stepped out of the landing carrier with his elite ground team, ex-slaves, ex-soldiers, ex-victims. Not a single one of them came for conquest. They came to bury the myth of Ra-Zun's supremacy. And in the heart of the palace they found the High Blood Leader, a monstrous being, all bone plate and tendrils, speaking in a dozen tongues. He looked at Jared like a curious insect, even now. "You learned, well," it hissed. Jared raised his pulse rifle. "We learned from the best," he said, "and then we got better." He pulled the trigger. The High Blood's head snapped back, exploded and collapsed into ash. No speeches, no trial, just consequences. By the end of the day, Earth's flag, a simple black star on steel gray, flew above Zurkar. Not as a symbol of conquest, but as a warning. Humanity had been enslaved, mocked, underestimated. Now they stood at the edge of the galaxy with fire in their veins and history under their boots. And for the first time since the stars had birthed life, no one dared laugh at Earth again. The galaxy was no longer laughing. Not after Zurkar. Not after the High Blood's execution was broadcast, uncensored, to every system Earth could reach. The final shot had rippled across the stars like a religious event. Some civilizations wept, others cheered. A few went silent and powered down their long-range comms out of sheer fear. The message was clear. Earth was not just free. Earth was untouchable, but power, real power, doesn't come without rot. And Jared Cole could smell it. It started subtly. A delay in fleet communications here. A falsified casualty report there. At first, Jared thought it was just the usual bureaucratic breakdown, the kind that always slithered in once governments felt safe. But then a name appeared on his encrypted terminal. Admiral Rowan Madek, an old ally, one of the original commanders from the first counterattacks, a brilliant tactician, a brutal fighter, and lately, a whisper in too many dark places. Jared reviewed a report forwarded by his intelligence officer. Rowan had met with several independent colonial delegates from former council worlds. The logs showed trades of weapon schematics, fleet positions, even troop codes. Treason. Except Jared didn't want to believe it. Not from Rowan. So he went to find out himself. He took a stealth craft, no escorts, no fanfare, and flew to Axiom 7, the isolated fortress planet where Rowan had stationed his forces for reconstruction and training. Axiom 7 was cold, covered in frost plains and sky towers, perfect for keeping secrets. Jared landed without clearance, marching across the landing bay with a pulse pistol at his side and a fury in his gut. Rowan was waiting. "Didn't expect a visit," he said, smirking, arms folded as his command officers stood awkwardly behind him. Jared's reply was a growl. "You're selling out Earth?" "Earth?" Rowan laughed, bitter. "You mean your empire? Your cult of vengeance? Jared, this isn't Earth anymore. It's you, just you. Your face on every victory, your name on every blade." Jared's jaw tensed. "I didn't build a cult. I built protection. Something you used to believe in." "I still do, but not like this, not with fear." Jared stepped closer. "Fear's the only thing that kept us alive." "You think we're alive?" Rowan snapped. "Half our people are starving on frontier colonies while you're dropping neutron bombs to make a point. Earth didn't survive to become the thing it hated." Silence. Just the hum of generators and the breath of soldiers too scared to interrupt. Jared looked him in the eye. "So what?" You'll bring the council back? Negotiate with the same cowards who watched us burn? Roan's voice dropped. I'll build something new, without you. And that was it. Roan wasn't trying to fix Earth. He was trying to replace Jared. The shot came fast. Not from Jared. From behind. A rail dart tore through Roan's second-in-command. She hit the deck before anyone could scream. Jared didn't flinch. That was your warning shot. Roan's face twisted, not in fear, but regret. You're not the man who let us out of the chains. No, Jared said, turning away. I'm the man who makes sure we never wear them again. He left Roan alive. Barely. Back on Throat Cutter, Jared sat alone in the dark, hands bloodied, chest aching. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just stared at the stars. Was Roan right? Had Jared gone too far? Had he become the very tyrant Earth once feared? But doubt couldn't stop what had already started. That night, 2 more colonies declared independence. That week, a human civil fleet vanished near the Grelix system. That month, a message came from a deep space probe near the Galactic rim. Not a distress call, a warning. Something bigger than the Razun was watching now, and it had noticed Earth. The signal came through, broken, almost like a whisper buried beneath static. At first, Earth's deep space net dismissed it as background radiation, some dying sun coughing its final breath. But then came the pattern. A pulse in perfect intervals, coordinates, binary, and then, in unmistakably clear Old Earth English, we remember the fire. It wasn't human, but it knew them, and that terrified Jared more than the Razun ever had. For days, Earth's orbital command scrambled to decode the message fully. Hundreds of linguists, exocryptologists, and rogue AIs were patched together like a hive mind. What they found wasn't just a warning. It was an invitation to a system far beyond any charted routes, a blank zone past the galactic rim. What lived out there? No records, no memory. Not even Razun files contained mentions of that region. And if those monsters hadn't dared to log it, that meant one thing. They feared it. Jared didn't hesitate. He mobilized the Throat Cutter, escorted by only 2 other ships, Dogma and Relic. No massive fleet, no bombs, just him and a team of war-hardened ghosts who no longer believed in death. Before he left, Roan sent one final message. If you die out there, I hope it's because you finally found something worth fearing. Jared didn't respond, because fear wasn't the problem anymore. Purpose was. The journey took 7 days through uncharted warp corridors, places where time bent and sensors lied. The stars thinned. Space grew cold, like it didn't want to be known. And then, the system emerged. One planet, black as ink, orbiting a star that pulsed like a slowing heart. There were ships orbiting it, not moving, not alive, dead civilizations. Earth recognized none of them. Their hulls were fossilized, some punctured by energy beams that didn't even resemble weaponry, more like surgical cuts from gods. And floating among them was a structure, massive, angular, alive. It wasn't a station. It wasn't a ship. It was a mind. Jared approached with shields up, weapons powered down. He had no intention of attacking. Not here. Not without understanding. They docked. The airlock hissed open into a corridor that looked carved from obsidian. The walls shimmered with shifting symbols, something deeper than language. Memory, maybe. A voice greeted them, not aloud, inside their minds. You burned your chains. Good. Now you carry them. Jared froze. Who are you? We are what comes after tyrants, what watches slaves become monsters, what remembers the echo of every scream you made the galaxy listen to. The voice didn't accuse. It observed. His team flinched. Some dropped to their knees, clutching their heads. Jared stayed standing. We survived. We had to make them pay. And they did. But now you face the cost of that fire. The corridor opened into a chamber. A mirror, tall as a skyscraper, faced them. No reflection, just images. Jared saw Earth, then Razun, then Earth again, but different. Worse, cities shaped like weapons, skies full of fleets, children marching in silence. He saw himself on a throne of bones, faceless and still. He backed away. What is this? Your legacy, unless you choose another path. The voice offered no riddles, no threats, just a choice. Return and rule with fire, or walk away and let Earth become something more than vengeance. Jared said nothing. He stared at the mirror. Then he turned away. When they left the structure, it didn't follow. When they jumped back into known space, the voice didn't call again. Back on Earth, things had shifted. The colonies that once tried to secede stopped. Roan sent no more messages. The fear that had begun to spread had dulled, replaced by uncertainty. A crack in the storm. Jared called a summit. No war speech. No ultimatums. He stood before Earth's first united leaders, the survivors of every species who had stood beside humans when the stars burned. And he said just 3 words. It ends now. There would be justice, still. But no more war for pride. No more empires built on ash. Earth would lead, but it would not conquer. And in the dark beyond the stars, something ancient smiled. Because the ones who survive the fire are not always the ones who start it. The galaxy had voted to enslave Earth. Now they would watch Earth become its salvation or its judge. The choice was human.